Welcome to History Explained, where we illuminate the past to better understand our present. I'm your guide to your daily journey through the past to empower the future. Today is Thursday, May 22, 2025. As we do every Thursday, we're exploring a fascinating cultural practice from history that continues to influence our world. Today, we turn our attention to the Japanese tea ceremony, known in Japan as Chado or the Way of Tea. This highly ritualized practice of preparing and serving matcha, powdered green tea, is far more than a simple refreshment. It's a comprehensive cultural experience that embodies core Japanese aesthetic and philosophical principles, with a history spanning over 800 years. What makes the Japanese tea ceremony particularly fascinating is how it transforms a mundane daily activity, drinking tea, into a profound art form that reflects broader cultural values. Through studying the tea ceremony, we gain insight into Japanese concepts of tranquility, respect, harmony, and the appreciation of impermanence that have influenced Japanese culture from medieval times to the present day. So let's explore the rich tradition of the Japanese tea ceremony, examining its historical development, philosophical foundations, aesthetic principles, and enduring cultural significance both within Japan and around the world. The origins of tea in Japan can be traced back to the 9th century, when Buddhist monks returning from study in China brought tea plants and the practice of tea drinking to Japan. Initially, tea was primarily consumed for its medicinal properties and was largely restricted to monasteries and the imperial court. In these early days, tea was prepared quite differently from the matcha-based ceremony we know today. The earliest form involved boiling tea leaves with other ingredients like salt, while later methods included powdering tea leaves and whisking them into hot water, a precursor to the modern preparation of matcha. The true foundations of the tea ceremony as a distinct cultural practice emerged in the 12th and 13th centuries. The Zen Buddhist monk Issai, who founded the Rinzai school of Zen in Japan, wrote Kissa Yojoki, or How to Stay Healthy by Drinking Tea, in 1211, which promoted tea's health benefits and connection to Zen practice. Issai is credited with introducing the cultivation of a new variety of tea plant and the ritual preparation of powdered tea that would eventually evolve into the modern tea ceremony. During the Muromachi period, 1336-1573, tea drinking evolved from a luxury of the elite into a more aesthetic practice with spiritual dimensions. Formal tea gatherings called chakai became popular among the warrior class and wealthy merchants, often featuring lavish displays of Chinese art and tea utensils in ornate reception rooms. This ostentatious version of the tea gathering was transformed by the influential tea master Murata Juka in the late 15th century. Juka introduced the concept of Wabi, an aesthetic principle embracing rustic simplicity, into the tea ritual. He favored smaller, more intimate tea rooms and began incorporating Japanese-made utensils alongside prized Chinese ones. His approach sought to create tea gatherings that emphasized spiritual connection rather than material display. The true revolutionary of the tea ceremony was Sen no Rikyu, who lived from 1522 to 1591 during Japan's turbulent Sengoku or Warring States period. As the foremost tea master to the powerful warlord Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Rikyu refined the tea ceremony into what would become its most enduring form, Wabi cha, or the tea of quiet taste. Rikyu established many of the central aesthetic and philosophical principles that continue to guide the tea ceremony today. He emphasized extreme simplicity, creating small tea rooms with rustic materials and implementing a precise sequence of movements for the preparation and service of tea. Rikyu famously designed tea rooms with entrances so small that samurai were forced to remove their swords before entering, symbolically equalizing everyone in the tea space regardless of social rank. Under Rikyu's influence, the tea ceremony evolved from a status symbol into a profoundly philosophical practice. He formulated 4 core principles that continue to guide tea ceremony practice: harmony, wa; respect, ke; purity, se; and tranquility, jaku. These principles extended beyond the tea room into guides for everyday life and embody the Zen Buddhist emphasis on mindfulness and being fully present in each moment. Rikyu's relationship with Hideyoshi eventually soured, and in 1591, the warlord ordered Rikyu to commit ritual suicide. The exact reasons remain contested by historians, with theories ranging from political intrigue to personal disagreements about aesthetic principles. Despite his tragic end, Rikyu's influence on the tea ceremony remained paramount, and his descendants would go on to establish the 3 main schools of tea ceremony that still exist today: Omotesenki, Urasenki, and Mushikoji-senki. The tea ceremony continued to evolve during the Edo period, 1603–1868, becoming more formalized and spreading more widely through Japanese society. Various schools developed specific approaches, and detailed manuals were written codifying the precise movements, utensils, and seasonal considerations for proper tea service. During the Meiji Restoration and Japan's opening to the West in the late 19th century, the tea ceremony faced new challenges. As Japan rapidly modernized and adopted Western customs, traditional practices like the tea ceremony initially fell out of favor among some who viewed them as remnants of an outdated feudal culture. However, this period also saw the tea ceremony gain new appreciation as a quintessential expression of Japanese cultural identity. Okakura Kakuzo's influential book, The Book of Tea, published in English in 1906, introduced Western audiences to the philosophical underpinnings of the tea ceremony and positioned it as a uniquely Japanese art form embodying principles distinct from Western materialism. Today, the Japanese tea ceremony continues as a vibrant tradition practiced by millions in Japan and increasingly around the world. The largest schools, particularly Urasenki, have established branches internationally, and many non-Japanese have become certified tea instructors. Now that we've examined the historical development of the tea ceremony, let's look more closely at what actually happens during a formal tea gathering, or chaji. A full formal tea gathering is an elaborate event lasting up to 4 hours and consisting of several distinct phases. However, more casual tea sessions called chakai are also common and involve a simplified procedure focused primarily on the tea serving itself. A formal chaji begins before the guests even arrive at the tea house. They gather first at a waiting area, where they symbolically leave behind the concerns of the ordinary world. From there, they proceed along a garden path called the roji, or dewy path, which is designed to create a sense of transition from the everyday world to the special time and space of the tea ceremony. The guests purify themselves at a stone basin called a sukubai, washing their hands and rinsing their mouths to symbolize the cleansing of body and spirit before entering the tea room. They then proceed through a small entrance called Nijiraguchi, which typically requires them to bow and enter on their knees, creating a sense of humility regardless of one's status in the outside world. Inside the tea room, guests are seated according to an established hierarchy, with the most honored guest, or shokyaku, seated closest to the alcove called the tokonoma. This alcove contains a hanging scroll with calligraphy or artwork and a seasonal flower arrangement, both carefully selected by the host to establish the aesthetic theme of the gathering. The host enters and greets each guest individually. A light meal called keizeki is served, followed by a break during which the guests return to the waiting area. Upon their return, they observe the host preparing the charcoal fire that will heat the water for tea. The main tea procedure, called koicha, or thick tea, then begins. The host purifies each utensil in a precisely choreographed sequence of movements, then prepares a bowl of thick tea that is shared among all guests. Following this, there is another break during which sweets are served, and then a second, thinner tea called yu-sucha is prepared, with each guest receiving an individual bowl. Throughout this process, there are established moments for the guests to examine and appreciate the tea utensils, which might include the tea caddy, scoop, whisk, bowls, and other implements. Many of these items may be precious antiquities or made by renowned artisans, and appreciating their craftsmanship is an integral part of the ceremony. The entire event is governed by precise rules regarding movement, conversation, and even the proper way to drink from the tea bowl. Yet within this highly formalized structure, each tea gathering is a unique, never-to-be-repeated experience, embodying the Japanese concept of ichigo-ichi, or one time, one meeting. The philosophical foundations of the tea ceremony are deeply intertwined with Zen Buddhism, which emphasizes the importance of being fully present in the moment and finding enlightenment in everyday activities. The tea ceremony exemplifies the Zen approach of seeking the profound within the mundane, finding beauty, meaning, and even spiritual truth in the simple act of preparing and drinking tea. The aesthetic principles that guide the tea ceremony have had profound influence on Japanese culture more broadly. The concept of Wabi Sabi embraces the beauty of things that are imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. This manifests in the tea ceremony through the use of irregularly shaped ceramics, weathered utensils, and simple, often rustic materials. Another key aesthetic concept is ma, which refers to the significance of negative space or intervals. In the tea ceremony, this is expressed through the careful spacing of utensils, the measured pace of movements, and moments of silence that punctuate the proceedings. These empty spaces are not voids but are considered as meaningful as the objects and actions themselves. The idea of seasonal awareness, or kissetsuken, is also fundamental to the tea ceremony. Every element, from the scroll and flowers in the tokonoma to the sweets served and even the tea bowl used, should reflect the current season. This cultivates an appreciation for the transient nature of time and the unique beauty of each moment in the natural cycle. The tea ceremony also embodies a distinctly Japanese conception of hospitality, or omotenashi. This principle emphasizes wholehearted care for guests without expectation of reward. The host prepares for days or even weeks before a tea gathering, considering every detail of their guest's experience from the moment of invitation to the final farewell. Beyond its aesthetic and philosophical dimensions, the tea ceremony has also played important social and political roles throughout Japanese history. During the tumultuous Warring States period, tea gatherings provided neutral spaces where potential allies or enemies could meet on equal terms. The shared experience of tea created bonds across political divisions and sometimes facilitated diplomatic negotiations. For merchants who were technically lower in the social hierarchy than samurai but often wealthier, mastery of the tea ceremony offered a form of cultural capital that could elevate their social standing. By demonstrating refined taste through their collection of tea utensils and knowledge of ceremony procedures, wealthy merchants could transcend some of the limitations of the rigid feudal class system. Women have also found unique forms of empowerment through the tea ceremony. While the early development of the ceremony was dominated by male practitioners, by the Edo period, many women, particularly from samurai and wealthy merchant families, were studying tea. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, as Japanese women sought new roles beyond traditional domestic spheres, tea ceremony training provided a socially acceptable way for women to develop independent skills and sometimes even professional careers as teachers. Today, the majority of tea ceremony practitioners in Japan are women, and many of the most respected contemporary tea masters are female. The practice continues to offer practitioners a way to cultivate personal discipline, aesthetic sensitivity, and social connections. The Japanese tea ceremony has also had significant international influence. When it was introduced to Western audiences in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, its aesthetic principles contributed to the development of art movements like Japanism and influenced Western modernist architecture through its emphasis on simplicity, natural materials, and the relationship between interior and exterior spaces. In recent decades, aspects of the tea ceremony have been adopted by mindfulness movements around the world. Its emphasis on full presence in the moment, careful attention to sensory experience, and finding meaning in everyday actions resonates with contemporary interest in mindfulness practices as antidotes to the stress and fragmentation of modern life. Of course, as with any traditional practice that spans centuries, the tea ceremony has faced challenges in maintaining relevance in contemporary society. In modern Japan, the full formal tea ceremony can seem dauntingly complex and time-consuming to younger generations juggling busy work schedules and digital distractions. The traditional requirement for practitioners to kneel on tatami mats for extended periods can also be physically challenging, particularly for older individuals or those with joint problems. In response, many tea schools have developed more accessible versions of the ceremony that can be performed seated in chairs or even at a table rather than on tatami mats. There are abbreviated ceremonies that capture the essential experience in less time, and some contemporary practitioners are finding ways to bring the philosophical principles of the tea ceremony into everyday contexts beyond the formal tea room. The core values embodied in the tea ceremony, harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility, continue to offer profound insights for contemporary life. In our hyperconnected world where constant digital stimulation fragments attention and accelerates pace of life, the tea ceremony's emphasis on creating a separate time and space for full presence and mindful interaction offers a valuable counterbalance. As we face growing environmental challenges, the ceremony's respect for natural materials, seasonal awareness, and aesthetic appreciation of imperfection and impermanence suggests more sustainable ways of relating to the material world. Rather than constantly seeking the new and perfect, the Wabi Sabi aesthetic finds beauty in the weathered, the repaired, and the handcrafted. And in a global context where cultural differences can become sources of tension, the tea ceremony demonstrates how a culturally specific practice can still communicate universal values and create meaningful connections across different backgrounds. The principles of hospitality, mindfulness, and finding beauty in simplicity resonate with people from diverse cultural traditions. While we've explored the tea ceremony primarily as a Japanese cultural practice, it's worth noting that tea ceremonies exist in various forms across Asian cultures. China, Korea, and other tea-producing regions have their own distinct traditions of ceremonial tea preparation and appreciation. Each of these traditions reflects the unique cultural values and historical contexts of its origin while sharing the fundamental recognition of tea as something more than merely a beverage, a medium for cultural expression, social connection, and even spiritual insight. As we conclude our exploration of the Japanese tea ceremony, we can appreciate how this practice exemplifies the transformation of a simple, everyday activity into an art form of profound depth and beauty. By elevating the preparation and sharing of tea into a mindful practice governed by principles of harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility, the tea ceremony offers insights that extend far beyond its specific cultural context. Whether or not we ever participate in a formal tea ceremony ourselves, we can be inspired by its core insight, that with the right intention and attention, even the most ordinary moments of life can become opportunities for beauty, connection, and meaning. Perhaps that's the most valuable cultural insight the tea ceremony has to offer our rushing, distracted contemporary world. The reminder that how we do what we do matters as much as what we accomplish. Thank you for joining us for this cultural exploration of the Japanese tea ceremony. Tomorrow, we'll be back with our Economic Milestones episode where we'll be examining the creation of the Federal Reserve System and its impact on modern banking and monetary policy. If you enjoyed this journey through history, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced a tea ceremony or been influenced by Japanese aesthetic principles? Let us know in the comments section below. For our members, this Sunday we'll have a special roundup of cultural practices from around the world with additional insights and analysis. We'll explore connections between these traditions and how they continue to shape contemporary global culture. Until next time, I'm your guide for History Explained, where we believe that understanding yesterday is the key to navigating tomorrow.